So எல்லாரும் அட்மிட் பண்ணியாச்சு. So
okay,
you are ready now, we will start. Rest அப்படியே ஜாயின் பண்றோம்.
Okay. Very respected speaker of this early morning, CA Jagdishan sir, Secretary of SARCA Panaraj sir, participants of this important 12 days India-Ace program designed for the members in industry. Yesterday we had an excellent session handled by CA Ramasamy sir. We got very good feedback from the participants. Today we are in the second day of the program, and we have with us a very good speaker, CA Jagdishan sir, to speak in the topic of borrowing costs and income tax. On behalf of members of this great region, I welcome him for this virtual program and thank him for accepting our invitation and addressing us in this early morning, that to Sunday. I am happy to welcome each one of the participants for this India-Ace program. With this, I request Panaraj sir, Secretary of SCRC, to introduce the speaker of this morning to the viewers.
Very good morning, sir, and welcome to all of you. Jagdishan sir is a chartered accountant with nearly 10 years of experience in the audit department of an LLP firm, and is presently in practice for the last 4 years, advising and assisting clients in India's transition for companies that are adopting Ind-AS. During his stint with PSR LLP, Chennai, Jagdishan had in-depth, extensive experience in statutory audits, international GAAP audits, reviews of listed and large multinational companies in automotive, industrial markets, consumer markets, healthcare, etc., including ITES. He had taken various firm-level technical training sessions on accounting, auditing, and corporate laws during his tenure with LLP. He has handled several CP seminars organized by SARCA on Ind-AS and also on auditing standards. With this brief introduction, I welcome you very warmly, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Panaraj sir. Thank you, Jagdishan sir, for coming early in the morning to introduce me and start the session. Your services are very appreciated. Thank you. Yeah. So today's session is on two accounting standards, and those are income taxes and borrowing cost. So I will start sharing the screen. We will discuss. We'll discuss for next 1.5 hours. If you have any doubts, please raise as and when it arises, so that it will be good for the participants to understand the queries as and when it arises. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the end of this meeting. Yeah, I'm sharing the screen. Yes. Yeah. 1 minute.
Yes.
There are some messages. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Very, very good morning. In fact, this is the first day of August, and we are just coming out of COVID, I believe. And it's a good start to a month, I would say. Okay, fine. So let us start with income taxes. Ind-AS 12. So basically, we all have understood AS 22 It speaks about deferred taxes in an Indian GAAP scenario. And we will generally touch upon what are the differences between IGAAP and Ind AS or IFRS. And we'll also understand the basic concepts, criteria required for recognizing deferred tax, and how and where we will recognize the current tax and deferred tax. So these are some of the steps, and those are mandatory steps which need to be followed as per Ind AS. Those provide guidance. There are some guidance, but most of them are mandatory in nature because most of the standards are principle driven. Okay, so it has to be followed. There is, but we will try to understand the logic behind why it is principle based and why it is logic based, and then we will understand the purpose behind the disclosure of income taxes in the financial statements. Okay, as you know, taxes play a very important role in a decision making process. Okay, so from an applicability perspective, income taxes is just unavoidable in any financial statements. Okay, for example, take me a case like borrowing cost. Okay, today we are handling this topic. Borrowing cost may not be applicable in a financial statement if the company does not have an asset which is required to be capitalized. Okay, so but income taxes, can someone tell me if it is not applicable in any financial statements? Its application is wide and varying over a period of time, and the jurisdictions of income taxes is absolutely big. Okay, we will discuss those as we go along into the slides. Fine. Yeah, we'll get into the slides. So what are we going to cover? We are going to cover scope and key principles, where to recognize current tax, how to recognize current tax, and then deferred taxes, and what are the specific applications. We have handled some 2-3 criteria which are application oriented. Fine. So fine. Now income taxes. So income taxes are generally broken down into 2: current taxes and deferred taxes. So what do you mean by current tax? Current tax is a set of provision which we make on an event which has already happened in the current year. Okay. So in respect to current period or past, an income tax payable is recognized in the books, which is current tax. These all are definitions. Don't worry. If you have any doubts, please chat or raise queries over there. We will try to address. Now deferred tax. The concept itself is slightly different, and it paves way for further discussions. So what happens when there is a future taxable temporary difference? Okay, when there is a future taxable temporary difference, there will be a deferred tax liability. When there is a deductible temporary difference, then there will be a deferred tax asset. Fine. So how to recognize deferred tax liabilities, how to recognize deferred tax assets, we will discuss. Fine. So the key concept here is taxable temporary difference and deductible temporary difference. Now, okay. Now, what does IGAAP say? IGAAP meaning, when I mean IGAAP, normal accounting standard 22. Accounting standard 22 talks about timing differences. Now here we talk about temporary differences. So from which perspective? Indian GAAP speaks about P&L based approach to identify what are the differences. Say a best example would be a leave encashment. Leave encashment is made a provision in a financial statement which is disallowed. Only when it is paid, it is offered for tax, allowed for tax, to put it simple. So what is happening here? There is a temporary difference which is arising on account of a timing difference. So timing meaning P&L we have recognized, but P&L we will simply say as it accounting P&L we have recognized, but tax P&L we have not taken the leave expenditure. So now what will happen? There is an asset, you have paid a tax in the current period, which means the current tax is recognized, and against that you will have eligibility to deduct a timing difference later. So deferred tax asset is created on leave encashment. This is a simple example, right? Okay, but there are scenarios, and Ind AS says we have to have a balance sheet approach than a P&L approach. Okay, so that is the difference. We'll learn all those things now. So what are the scopes? So Ind AS includes all domestic and foreign taxes based on taxable profits, okay, and withholding taxes. So when I mean taxable profits, it has to be a net-based approach, okay, which means a revenue minus expenditure will give you a net profit. If any tax is levied by any jurisdiction in which the entity or group operates, will become a tax on income, okay. There are taxes on revenue. Say, for example, we'll have a good example like tonnage taxes. Tonnage taxes is based on the tons handled by a particular company. So those are not within the scope of this standard. Okay. So if anything is taxable on profit or a net based approach, and that will become applicable under this standard. Simple. Fine. So where do we recognize current tax? Okay. So understand always. So there are two sets of P&L. P&L is broken into two. One is a statement of P&L, and the second one is other comprehensive income. Right? Current tax is recognized in P&L. Okay. If it is relating to an item of OCI, this is recognized in item of OCI. Simple. Okay. Wherever we have to draw connection between the underlying transaction and the tax impact arising out of that. So wherever it is recognized, and we will provide for current tax in the same place. Okay, that is what it is meaning, which means items of profit and loss will be in current tax. Items of OCI or equity will go to current OCI or equity. Fine. Now the next scenario is, okay, what happens if the tax payable or tax paid is higher than tax payable? Then it becomes a provision scenario. So it will be disclosed as a liability, and it's the other way around. If advance tax is more, so that is what it is discloses asset. Okay. Now here assets are, so there is a last table, assets on carry forward losses. It results in deferred tax situations in certain jurisdictions. We'll discuss that in a later slide. Fine. Okay. Now, so these are simple and more or less in line with Indian GAAP. So what are the tax rates which should be used for determining current tax? Current tax should be used, applied by taking an rate which is substantively enacted as at the end of the reporting period. Okay. Now what is substantive enactment? Okay. So generally in India, so budgets are placed on February 1st, and then it takes months to get a president tax rate. What if there is a timing difference and the president rejects it? Okay. So in that scenario, so we'll have to take what is a substantively inactive rate. So for example, 30% to 25% they reduced. So which rate to apply in those scenarios has to be applied if it is substantively enacted, which means that Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha approved, then president is just giving an accent. It is only a procedural formalities where there is no doubt on rejection of the enactment. Okay, then it is called a substantively enacted rate. Tax rate particularly. This is very important. Okay, for example, government has now tried to stabilize the taxation rates, but we used to have this change in surcharge, okay, cess and all those things, which will play a role in determining and recognizing taxes as an item in financial statement. Okay. Now, so for current tax looks simple because it is pertaining to the past events. And then now we'll move on to the deferred tax. Deferred tax, okay, as the concept says, there are many measurement criteria, recognition principles. All those should be mandatorily followed. Okay, standard more or less everywhere it says should be used, shall be used. Okay, so now these are the steps which we cover in this presentation. So generally, how to determine the tax base, what is the tax base, what is accounting base, then how to calculate temporary differences, what are the exceptions available. Okay. Now, whether we will analyze for recoverability, tax rates, recognition of deferred tax, and presentation. Simple. Okay. Now, most important. So tax base, determination of tax base. Okay. Now, tax base. Generally, what is the tax base? tax base is something which is as per income tax purposes. Okay, let us keep it simple. If there is an asset purchased, I have an example. Asset purchased and the cost of the machine is 100 rupees. And for tax purposes, the asset is allowed to be depreciated over a period of 5 years. Fine. So if it is allowed to be deductible purposes, and we get the economic benefits by depreciation. So the tax base for this asset is 100 rupees. Now, if the asset is not allowed to be deductible under income taxes, the tax base will become 0. Okay. Yeah. So the key concept here is the asset should be allowable under the tax purposes, and over a period of time there should be a difference between the accounting base and tax base. Yeah. Now, tax bases are liability. So liability, generally carrying amount will become the tax base of the liability. So what is deductible and what is the carrying amount? So that becomes the tax base of the liability. For example, so there is a loan payable of 100, okay, and repayment will not have any tax consequences. So the tax base is 100. Fine. So which means that there is no temporary. So which means that there is no temporary difference in this case because there is no tax impact on this loan, and hence the accounting base and tax base will be same. If the accounting base and tax base will be same, there is no temporary difference. That is the meaning of understanding the tax base and accounting base. Okay. Now let us come to accrued expenses scenario. There are expenses. So we'll replace this with a set of warranty expenses. Warranty provision is made to an extent of 100 rupees. Okay. Now, okay, this example is wrong. Okay, I'll tell you. Warranty provision is made in financial statements. So what happens under books? It is recognized as an expense, but for tax purpose, it will be allowed only when the warranty claims are received by the company and settled by the company. Now there is a timing difference. So what happens? So it is disallowed and the tax base becomes 0. So there is a difference between warranty provision carried in books and warranty as per tax is generally 0. So there is a difference, and that arises. Difference meaning the tax base is 0, accounting base is 100, and now there is a difference of 100. Under 100, we will apply 30% tax rate to recognize deferred tax asset, right? So the main. So we used to understand AS22 better. Now what we used to do, we'll take P&L of accounting and the P&L of tax under income tax laws. So we'll compare both the debits and see what is the difference and recognize. That's a simple step. Now, under Ind AS, the first step is very important, which is the tax base. What is the tax base? So what is a book base? Book base is nothing but simplistically you understand that it is either the carrying, it is mainly the carrying amount as per the Ind AS financial statements, number one. In some cases, a fair value of assets and liabilities, okay, which we'll discuss later. Okay, this becomes the accounting base. Now, what is a tax base? Tax base is as per the income tax laws. Okay, so it is different. If it is allowable, so what happens? We'll have to consider what is the amount allowable as at the end of the period. Okay. Okay. Now, so sorry, I'm not able to see any chat or messages. Okay, I assume we are going good. So in case you find something, you please type out your messages. Right? Fine. So these are the focus points in determining tax basis. Fine. The first one, taxable economic benefits. Okay, fine. So what is taxable economic benefits? So we are assuming that the entity will earn profits by usage of an asset. Okay, and that is very important. So what happens if an asset is used and that will generate revenues, that will generate profits, and more importantly, it will also be sold by. So there will be sale proceeds from the disposal. So these are the 3 or 4 methods by which the asset entity will get the economic benefits through use of an asset, right? Okay, now standard, whether the standard is asking us to estimate all the economic benefits which is expected by the company. No. Okay. The point is very simple. Okay. So I have so the company is having a car. Okay. The car is or machine. The machine value say 100 lakhs. Now what happens if the asset is used for next 5 years? The company will be able to generate a revenue of say 250 crores, 250 lakhs, and a profit of say 50 lakhs. Now, are we here to determine whether the 50 lakhs will have any tax impact? No. Okay, those are future profits, future taxable profits, and those future taxable profits will be dealt in those years. Number one. Number two. So we are not here to recognize a tax liability for the 50 which is expected. We are here to recognize the difference of 100 lakhs which is carried in books at 100 lakhs, and what is the tax base which is generally 100 as at the beginning of the on the initial date of recognition. Okay, if there is a change in depreciation between the accounting and tax, there will be a difference in accounting and tax basis for our analysis. Fine. Now, so that is what the third table is telling you. So the future tax consequences are disregarded, and we will consider income taxes or tax effects only to the extent of carrying amount of the asset in the balance sheet, which is very important. Okay, so we will not confuse or will not evaluate the profits made by the entity after say or beyond its carrying amount. Fine. Now, same holds good for liability also, which is in table 4. Okay. Now, okay. So okay, the fifth table is slightly important. I'll help you with an example. So, for example, so there are the preference shares which are redeemable at a premium, right? And the premium measures say at a fair value. You may not be in a position to determine what is the amount at which you will be able to redeem. So you need not worry about it. So now, as of now, meaning as at the balance sheet date, what is the effect and how are you going to settle the liability? Okay. So preference shares in many scenarios will also become liability under Ind AS scenario, but in Indian GAAP it is shown as share capital. That's a significant difference. So we are not covering it here. So we will never worry about what is the amount which we are going to settle at the end of the period. Okay. And similarly for an asset, we will never be able to determine or worry about the amounts in total recovered for the respective asset. We are determining the tax consequences of the carrying amount of asset and liabilities. That's all. Okay. So carrying amount will be the base. Beyond carrying amount, we will not consider, which means the carrying amounts which may get generated in the future periods will not be considered. Okay. Fine. Now, how to calculate? So this is step 1. So tax basis we have discussed. Now step 2 is calculate temporary differences. What are temporary differences? Very simple. Carrying amount, compare carrying amount with your tax base. So that will give you a difference, and that difference is called a temporary difference. Fine. So carrying amount is more than tax base. Now then if it is for assets, then it is a taxable temporary difference. And if it is for a liability, then it will be a deductible temporary difference. If the carrying amount is less than tax base, then what happens? There is a deductible temporary difference, and which creates a scenario for you to recognize deferred tax asset. And if it is a liability, it becomes a taxable temporary difference. Fine. So this table will help you to simply understand how to arrive at a DTL or DTA scenario. If the carrying amount and tax base is same, you will not have any DTA or DTL for assets and liabilities. We'll move on. Fine. Okay, this is step 3. So while step 2 is important, step 3 sometimes gains a lot of significance. We will not recognize deferred tax in these 3 scenarios. Okay, when there is an initial recognition of goodwill under a business combination scenario, we will not recognize deferred tax liability. Okay, we have an example we will discuss in a later part of our slide. Now the second table is important, which is initial recognition of assets and liabilities. Okay, and investment scenario, investment in subsidiaries, associate. Okay, we have separate slides for this. We will discuss later. Okay, as part of our specific application issues. Now, initial recognition. So initial recognition. So what happens in an initial recognition scenario? So when an asset is bought, okay, it creates a scenario of difference between tax base and book base. At the recognition stage itself, if there are differences, the taxes will not be, deferred tax will not be recognized. Fine. Okay. Fine. So these are the two scenarios, which is again an explanation for recognizing deferred tax or not recognizing deferred tax at the time of initial recognition of asset or liability. Right now, so deferred tax DTL or DTA will not be recognized if the transaction is not a business combination. Okay, and then at the time of transaction, it neither affects accounting or taxable profit. Fine. So if the accounting and taxable profit is not affected at the time of transaction, so for example, it is simple. When you buy an asset, when you buy a machinery, so our tax base is also 100 lakhs and the accounting base is also 100 lakhs. So there is no difference. Okay, and it does not affect either the accounting profit or taxable profit. Simple. So if it does not affect, then do not recognize deferred tax liability or asset on that transaction because there is no difference now. Okay, so that is a basic thing. Now we will discuss. So we have three situations. One is goodwill, another one is assets and liabilities, and now we will discuss goodwill. Fine. So this is the scenario. So NEEM when it acquired Nile, so it is recognizing 400 lakhs or crores of rupees in its books. Okay, goodwill is not deductible for tax purposes generally. Okay, the applicable tax rate is 25%. Now, so what happens? There is an exception, so which says that we should not. Okay, we should not recognize deferred tax liabilities arising from initial recognition of goodwill. So why? What happens? So goodwill itself is a net of fair value of assets acquired or net assets taken over, and the difference between the purchase consideration and the fair value of the assets taken over. Right now, what happens if you recognize deferred tax liability? It will still reduce your net assets. Now, what will happen then? Goodwill will gross up. Right. So read the third line. Applying the exemption. Okay, no deferred tax is recognized at the date of initial recognition because goodwill is measured as a residual and the recognition of DTL would gross up the amount of goodwill. That is a simple logic. Okay, the standard does not say, okay, don't do. That is not the scenario. What is the logic? When there is so we have an example, we will learn with the help of an example, don't worry. So understand the purchase consideration is 1,000, fair value is 600, and the amount of goodwill is simply 400 rupees. If you recognize a deferred tax liability, what will happen? So it will still reduce your, so say 40 you are recognizing. What will happen? The net assets will become 560 and the goodwill will become 440. Right? So that is why standard says, please don't recognize DTL. Okay? So DTA scenario will not arise. That's all. Fine. Okay. The fourth line is also slightly important. We have to consider whenever it arises. So later on, when you occur, so Nile Domestic does business badly, and then it goes into impairment. So what will happen? The impairment will have an impact on the goodwill recognized. So now, will you again go and change? The answer would be no, because it only affects the goodwill. And if you still do detail, and it will gross up the detail. So there is no effect. So that is why the standard says still don't apply deferred tax on the goodwill. Yeah. So moving on. So we'll move on to step 4. Step 4 is about recoverability, and it is absolutely important for us to understand the principles behind this recognition of deferred tax. So what are the scenarios in which deferred tax asset is created? Now, the simple scenario is deductible temporary differences where So we have seen in the previous slide, the tax base of asset is lower, okay, or the liability is higher. Then, so this first option is arising on account of differences between accounting and tax base. Now, the second scenario is slightly interesting. Unused tax losses. Unused tax losses is generally understood as tax carry forward unabsorbed depreciation business losses in Indian scenario. So which is not getting into accounts. Accounts will be zero, but tax you will have a huge amount which can be set off against the future profits. Unused tax credits. So let us for the simplistic sake, we'll keep as unused tax losses. These are the three scenarios in which a DTA is created. Clear? Okay. Now, okay. To what extent will recognize deferred tax asset? Deferred tax asset is recognized only to the extent of taxable temporary difference. Now, so first condition is it can be recognized only to the extent of taxable temporary difference. And second, it should be recoverable from the same entity, and it should be recoverable from the same taxation authority, and it is capable of getting adjusted against the deductible temporary difference in the same period. Okay, the both should happen in the same period. Okay, these are the 3 or 4 conditions which is absolutely important. I'll tell you. So what is same taxable entity? For example, we have a NEEM Limited, which is an example. NEEM, the taxable temporary difference and deductible temporary difference should pertain into the NEEM Limited. And NEEM Limited operates only in India. Okay, if it has a branch, if only in India. So India is a scenario. Okay, NEEM Limited is having a subsidiary in US. Okay, can it adjust the tax for losses earned in India against US? It is not possible, right? So these are the simple principles. But if the deductible temporary difference, so okay, I'll tell you, unused tax losses, business loss, we can carry for a period of 8 years. What if you have something which you adjusted beyond 8 years? So deferred tax cannot be recognized for those assets. Simple, right? Remember these conditions. It should be, it is recoverable only to the extent of taxable temporary difference. It is the same entity, same jurisdiction, or same taxation authority. That is the meaning of that. And then more or less, it should get reversed or adjusted against the existing deductible temporary differences. Right? Okay, now. So we have used the word recoverability. So recoverability, which means whether it is recoverable. Recoverability in an Indian scenario or a taxation scenario is whether your deductible amounts are adjusted against the taxable amounts in future. So what is the condition here? What is the understanding here? The understanding here is the company expects to make future profits or future adjustable amounts is the understanding. Now, so what is the condition? The main condition over here is whether it is probable. Okay, the most important topic. AS22 says virtual certainty. Now, this one introduces a probability scenario, right? Okay. So India's 12 says probability scenario. So what are the differences between virtual certainty and probability scenario, right? So probability scenario is more likely than or not. That's all. Okay. Virtually certain is, for example, we asking, meaning as an auditor or as a management should have a complete or tax. There should be a contract, and the contract should make profits, and the profit should be sufficient enough to adjust the existing deductible difference, tax deduct difference. Okay, so these are so it should be a binding agreement, and in the present scenario, there are no such binding contract signed by either supplier or customer. Okay, so such scenario is may not be possible. Okay, so virtually certain is that scenario. Probability is company is able to do well after COVID. Okay, what are the past trends? We'll analyze the past trends and see and ask for more. It is slightly judgmental and it is more practical. Okay, that is what I would say. So there is a probability assigned to it. Now, So now the point here is deferred tax assets should be recognized only after evaluating the recoverability of the deductible differences. If it is recoverable, then we will deduct. Now, so that is the first condition. Okay, is recoverable to the extent that taxable temporary difference relates. Okay, so it is covered there. If it is not recoverable, you will not analyze whether the same entity or whatever done. Okay, why is it important? We'll discuss that. Done. Why? Okay, now unused tax losses. Now, so what happens in a tax loss scenario? So tax losses are used generally by the company to adjust the future taxable profits. Correct? Correct. Okay. Now we are finalizing accounts for or finalized. Most of the India's companies would have or are completed by 31st March 2021. Now, what will happen? So we were in a lockdown scenario in March 20 and March 21. Okay. Now, under such very the scenarios were very different. Okay, the business scenarios were very completely different, which creates a significant doubts on many of the financial captions. Now, what will happen? So, how the company should establish that it will be able to recover the tax losses now? Okay, so there should be an evaluation. There should be an evaluation. The evaluation should be in the form of the management giving us the projections over the next 5 years, and the scenarios existed in the current period will continue. That's all. Okay, and meaning, so what I'm saying, there is no expectation that the management will face any uncertain event that will result in a significant loss, right? So what if that happens, then the entity will not be able to recover the existing tax losses. If the entity is not able to recover existing tax losses, then what happens? It will lapse. So that is why we will not recognize deferred tax asset if the scenarios or if the projections does not give positive or future taxable profits in the immediate 5 years or the period within which the tax losses could be adjusted. Fine. So probability is very important. So since it is very judgmental. So just by getting a projection, we may not be able to finalize, or we may not be able to recognize deferred tax asset. Okay. Now, so what are the criteria? The criteria are this. Okay. Whether the entity is having sufficient temporary taxable temporary differences, which is a condition which we discussed in the previous slide. Okay. Entity will also have taxable profits. And the taxable profits will be used within the period of expiry, say within 8 years. Okay, if the period suddenly government says, no, you can't have 8 years, you can recognize only within 4 years, then what will happen? So then that creates a significant doubt on the company. So you will not recognize DTA on assets which will not be able to recover. Now, okay, this is what we touched upon. So there are the identifiable causes, okay, which resulted in loss will not arise in future. For example, we made a loss in the previous year because of first year or second year of operation. We may have incurred some losses due to operating efficiency, something like that, right? Now, what will happen? So the scenarios will not happen in the future. So that has to be there in the set of projections and set of information shared with the management. Okay. Now, the next point is also significant. So what if there is a tax planning opportunity? The tax planning opportunity will also play a significant role in determining whether the taxes will be used by the company. We will look at that now. Okay. So we touched upon many times. So there should be a convincing evidence for future taxable profits. And such convincing evidence can only be the base for recognition of deferred tax asset for carry forward losses. Okay, there is no other scenario. Why? Because the company has already incurred losses in the past, and since it has incurred losses in the past, and what is the basis on which the auditor or the management will determine that it will make profits in the future? right? Now, so that is why the convincing evidence of taxable profits. So these all, so Ind AS is slightly dangerous. I'm saying it is dangerous because these informations on how or on what basis we have recognized deferred tax assets shall be mandatorily disclosed in the financial statements. Okay, such disclosure are generally not made in Indian GAAP, but Ind AS requires us to disclose. So how and what is the condition on which few deferred tax assets are recognized? Okay, fine. So and then every year, okay, every year or every balance sheet date, the assessment or reassessment of recoverability will be made. Now, so why it has to be made? So there can be change in conditions, there can be improvements. The company which is making losses might make profits. Then you may be able to recognize deferred tax asset. Okay, there might be a change in scenario. A company which is doing good might, because of COVID, it says the operations are very, very bad and it is closing down the operations. And now you will de-recognize deferred tax asset. All those things can happen. So the reassessment is mandatory and it is mandatorily made at every balance sheet date. Good. Now, so future taxable profits. Right? Okay. So we talked about future taxable profits. So we will now speak about tax planning opportunity. So what is a tax planning opportunity? So entity is having two options. So now suppose there is an opportunity to get a business which is having or buy a business which is having huge losses, and the losses can be adjusted against the existing profits. Okay, now there is an opportunity which is available for the company. So if the opportunities are available, and we will look at only to use that opportunity to recognize asset. Now, okay. So such opportunities, so entities cannot make this tax opportunities to create deferred tax asset and reduce deferred tax liability. Okay, so these two will result in increasing your asset base or reducing your liability base. Okay, so this is analyzed. This is tax planning opportunities analyzed to see whether your existing deferred tax asset can be utilized by way of a tax planning opportunity. That's all. Okay, there is an existing deferred tax asset, and the company will look at whether there is a tax planning opportunity for recovering this deferred tax asset, and the deferred tax asset is analyzed only to the extent of that tax planning opportunity. Now, so it is not that we are entirely applying tax planning opportunity as the base and recognizing DTA or DTL accordingly. That is completely not allowed. It is banned. Okay. So for the existing deferred tax asset, I'm repeating, for the existing deferred tax asset, what is our planning opportunity available to recover the deferred tax asset? Okay. Now, fine. Step 5. Okay, how to measure deferred tax asset? This is again same like current tax. It should be enacted a substantive enacted rate and by the reporting date. Okay, this is simple. Fine. So this is slightly interesting. So whether discounting is possible for current taxes or current tax liabilities or current tax asset. No, the answer for DTA DTL is there, okay, on the screen. So it is completely prohibited under para 53. You cannot do discounting of DTA or DTL. No. So what happens with current tax assets? So current tax assets, no, there also generally discounting is not allowed. It is an accounting policy choice. Okay. So because it is relates with government and period is not determined, so discounting is not encourageable. Okay, so no, discounting is not carried out in many jurisdictions or many companies, right? Discounting of DTA and DTL is prohibited. Simple. Okay, bear in mind. Now let us get into an example scenario. Now, okay, there is situation one. So we have three situations, I'll tell you. So there is an asset. The asset's carrying amount is 200 and its tax base through use is 100. And we'll also assume the tax base to sell the asset is also 100 as at the date of the balance sheet. Now, tax rate by using the asset is 20, which means that book profits are taxed at 20. And the fourth is capital gains are taxed at 10. Now, so what is the deferred tax on this transaction? Now, yeah, sorry, I was just reading some of the messages in the chat box. That's okay, I will discuss. Okay, now see what is happening here. The entity is planning to use the asset and generate profits, right? So the tax liability, tax rate applied will be 20%. Now, so scenario two, so what happens if the amount looks same? Okay, for the simplicity sake, we have kept the amounts as the same amount. So what happens if the company is not planning to use the asset and it is planning to sell the asset as at the balance sheet date? So what happens to the deferred tax liability? Okay, now there is a scenario. The scenario is you will apply the rate of say 10%. It is a capital gain rate. So capital gain 10 will be recognized as DTL in the financial statements. Clear? So observe it very clearly. So if it is a tax rate, then we will we will take 20, and by sale we will use 10%. Okay. What happens if the asset, if the company is planning to use the asset, say the extent of 50 and sell by 50%? Fine. So it is 15. So 20 into 100 into 50% into 20. So this we have assumed that the asset is used 50% and it is sold 50%. Okay, we can assume it is a group of assets also. Fine. What is the background? The background here is the management intention plays a very important role in determining deferred tax liability. Okay, or deferred tax scenario. The intention of the management, yes, you have to consider mandatorily. Without knowing the intention of the management, if you apply the deferred tax rate, then it will become wrong. Okay, so between 25% and 20% capital gains India scenario, so there is a difference of 5%. It used to be 10% earlier. Now, so this is generally called as dual manner of recovery. So which means the company will use the asset and the company will also sell the asset at the end of its life, or after some time it feels that it is enough. So that is what it is saying. Recognize DTA using normal income tax rules and recognize DTA using disposable tax rules if the asset is expected to be sold or disposed. Okay. So if there is a change in intention, so for example, in 2020, the asset, the company said, no, I will use the asset. We might have applied 30%. If on 2021, if the company says, no, I'm not going to use this asset, I'm going to sell this asset, then what will happen? There is a change in intention. So if the change in intention, then we will have to remeasure the tax rates and tax bases, and there will be a change in deferred tax balances. Okay. Now we'll move on. Okay. So this is very interesting. So we have learned deferred tax asset. To what extent deferred tax liabilities are recognized? To what extent deferred tax assets will be recognized? Okay. To what extent deferred tax liability will be recognized? Very, very simple. Liability scenario, we will recognize deferred tax in full 100%, no discounting. Okay. But deferred tax asset, we have already learned deferred tax asset. Deferred tax assets will be recognized only to the extent of, we have seen this, okay, only to the extent that there are deductible temporary differences. Okay. This is the important. So this is existing, and AS22 also says the same thing. Done. Okay, liabilities are always recognized in full. So where do we recognize? So deferred tax is recognized in the same place. If it is P&L, it will go to P&L. If it is OCR equity, it will go to OCR equity. And now if it is a business combination, okay, now the things are different. Business combination will go to goodwill. Okay, we'll learn this with the help of an example. Little later, don't worry. So now in OCA, so what are the things which is recognized generally in OCA or something? Fine. So what are the things which we will recognize in OCA? So revaluation, forex gains or losses on a translation of foreign entity, these things, right? What is recognized in equity? So just these are just illustrations given for your quick reading. Fine. So now the offsetting principles. Offsetting principles play a good role in disclosure. Okay. So there should be a legally enforceable rate. What's the legally enforceable rate? So for example, we pay advance taxes in India, and we also provide for income taxes, right? So what happens? Do you have an option to set off advance tax paid against provision for income tax? Okay. The answer is absolutely yes, because we file our returns after netting off the advance tax against the provision, right? Number one. Number two, so if within the same year it is offset, clear? So what if there is this advance tax scenario in 2018-19, provision for tax scenario 2019-20, and then 2021 you have an advance tax scenario, which means different years we have different balances, which is receivable balances, payable balances. Do you have right to set off balances against 2018-19, again 19-20? The answer is no. The answer is strictly no. But in recent times, income tax departments adjust balances, so they will do adjustments on their own. But do you have, as a company or as a management, do we have right to set off previous year advance tax against a current year provision? The answer is no. Okay, so what will happen? 2018-19 will be disclosed as receivable balance, and 2019-20 will be disclosed as payable balance. So that is what it means. Okay. So there is a legally enforceable right, and the intention is to settle on a net basis simultaneously. Okay, which means, which is what 19-20 there is a provision 100 crores, advance tax 102 crores, net of 2. So which we are intending to settle it on a net basis, right? Okay. Deferred tax, yes. Deferred tax should also have legally enforceable right. Okay, which means you have to break down the deferred tax into jurisdiction base. Now, same taxation authority. So this will give, so deferred tax naturally will have increased complications because of the varying amount of temporary differences and jurisdictions. So we should analyze this. That's all. Okay. Now, shall we take a few questions? Yeah, there are some good questions. Okay, I will discuss this. Step 2. Step 2 examples. Okay. So step 2 examples, I think we have discussed. Mr. Dhyarajan sir. So it is nothing. It's very simple. Let us keep it simple. So there is an asset of say 100 lakhs, okay, or 1 crore. Now we provide a depreciation in books. We provide a depreciation at 10%, but income tax says we provide depreciation at 15%. So what will happen at the year end? So our carrying value will be 90 in books and 85 in tax base. Okay, accounting base will be 90, 85 will be tax base. So now what, there is a difference of 5. So you will recognize DTL. on that fine. Okay. Okay. Now, step 3, difference at the time of yes. Yes. It will become a permanent difference. A scenario can be land. Yeah, but land, there is a small complication which is clarified in the ITFG opinions. Yeah, what would be the convincing evidence for startups? Okay. Startup, the scenario is totally different, sir. Even many things will not be able to recognize the startup. So startups, it is absolutely tough. I agree with you. So because there is no evidence of profits made by startups in the recent past, right? Principle of going concern, no. Yeah, I agree with you. So startups, the word used is convincing. Yes, it has to be convincing. Convincing meaning there should be established taxable profits and all. Okay, you cannot recognize deferred tax asset simply because our customer base is increasing, say in Amazon scenario or in a Zomato scenario. Okay, but whether at all a company is able to make profits, adjustable profits, that's it. See, we see a scenario of recoverability and we see a scenario of taxability. Okay, so if there is no recoverability and any asset cannot be recognized, that is the fundamental principles of Ind AS or IFRS, right? If there is no recoverability, you will not recognize those assets, those assets in books. Okay, if assets cannot be recognized, what is the difference in recognizing deferred tax asset? Okay. DTA is just a subset of an asset. The basic rule of recognizing an asset is to see whether it is recoverable. What is recoverable? The future economic benefits. If there is no economic benefits in the future, we will not recognize. Okay. The startups are not exceptional. Startups, I don't think so, will be able to recognize DTA. Then it creates a wrong picture. Okay. So they are happy to disclose losses. Why recognize deferred tax? That is my opinion. Yeah. Rate of DTA, base rate. Okay, rate of DTA only base rate. Okay, all sir. So the question of Mr. Nataraj is whether it is only the base rate or we will include cesses, surcharges, etc. All rates which is attached to income tax. Say for example, 30% plus surcharge plus cess. That is how we will take. Okay, everything. Okay, I missed one. The rate of DTA only base rate of. Okay, interesting question raised by Satish B. Thanks, sir. So I missed it. Sorry. So interest on late payment of TDS. Okay. So this is something which is relating to penalty. Okay. So generally this goes into finance cost and not under income taxes. Clear? Interest disallowance under section 194B, we consider as deferred tax asset. No, inventory written off in one particular year, will there be deferred tax asset? Okay, inventory written off is allowed for taxable purposes. Okay, if it is not allowed, or if it is not allowed, then there will be a difference in scenario. So inventory provision or inventory. So if you make a provision, then it is not allowed. So you said you are writing it off, right? Yeah. Okay. Interest on late payment is allowable. Okay. We do not have. So the question, Mr. Amit, is on where to disclose interest on late payment. Okay. So we answered that. And allowable expenses, TDS is part of the trading activity. Okay. Done. Okay, let's move on. Fine. So let us. Okay. Kindly remember these principles. Okay. Some of the principles are logic based, and we must follow these principles. Okay, there are no exceptions to it. Okay, now, yeah, we will discuss about business combination. Right? We'll understand. So we said we will not recognize goodwill when there is a business combination scenario. Why? We will discuss with the example. Okay. Now there is a company, Leem Limited, which is acquiring Margo Limited for 1,500. Now, at the date of acquisition, book value is 950, fair value is 1,050. Now, applicable tax rate is 30. Tax base of net asset is 900. What is the deferred tax liability at the date of acquisition? And how should the deferred tax liability impact the goodwill? Yeah. Okay, fine. See what is happening. We are recognizing the difference between deferred tax liability on purchase consideration and this. Okay, DTL at the date of acquisition is 45. So how to recognize DTL? So DTL is difference between purchase consideration and fair value. Purchase consideration is 1,500. Fair value is 1,050. Now the difference between DTL. Okay, what is it? So 1,050 is the fair value of the asset, and net assets is 900. On 150, we are taking 30%, which is 45. 45 will become the DTL. Now, so what are the things which is assessed? So how goodwill is determined? Goodwill is determined like this: take purchase consideration 1,500, reduce fair value of identifiable net assets 1,050. And then deferred tax liability is recognized. So goodwill becomes 495. Okay. Now where are we not recognizing goodwill? On this goodwill, whether we are recognizing again, that is a question. Okay. We will not recognize. Right. So it is already, so goodwill is not a tax deductible, and hence there is no recognition of DTL. Okay. If you have any doubts, please let me know. Clear? Okay. So what is happening? There is a difference between the fair value of assets as at the date of acquisition and the tax base, which is 150. 150 multiplied by 30% will give you 45. So that is also recognized in determining, that is also considered in determining goodwill. So which has increased the goodwill by 495. Okay. So again, the tax base. So what are we saying? The tax base of goodwill is nil. Okay. And hence no deferred tax is recognized due to exemption in Ind AS 12. That's all. Okay. Now let us understand again. There is another example we will see. So if it is a business combination scenario, we will recognize. If it is not a business combination scenario, we will not recognize. Okay. So now we will understand this with the help of an example. In the same example, so what is happening? As at the acquisition date, the book value is the same and the tax rate is same. Now, how to okay. So in the first example, the purchase consideration is 1,500. Now the purchase consideration is equal to the fair value, right? So what is the fair value? So business combination will give you this result. Okay. Asset. If you are just purchasing an asset, you are not purchasing a business. You are purchasing a set of assets. Then you are not recognizing deferred tax liability, and there is no scenario of goodwill. It is not nil. It is not applicable. Okay. So what is happening? The purchase consideration is 1,050, and then fair value is also 1,050. So difference between fair value and fair value will become the carrying amount in accounting base, and it becomes the accounting base. And the tax base is 900. So the difference is 150. 150 multiplied by 30 gives you 45. Recognize 45 as deferred tax liability and recognize 45 as goodwill. If it is a business combination scenario, it will give you this result. And if it is a asset purchase scenario, you will not have anything. You just have purchase consideration, paid for it. Carrying amount will give you asset accounting base and tax base to be same. There is no deferred tax liability because of initial recognition exemption. Clear? Okay. Now what happens to the subsequent accounting period? So subsequent changes to goodwill, okay? Subsequent changes to goodwill, those will be recognized so if it is relating to business combination, you will go and recognize in goodwill. If it is post measurement adjustment, then we will do the usual requirements of step 1 to step 6, what we have learned so far. Okay. Yeah. So we are understanding this with the help of this thing. So what happens when there is a change in temporary difference? Now, so Neem is a company which has acquired stake earlier, and now it is increasing its stake to 90% by acquiring additional 65%. Now, Neem had a land which is used for its own purposes, and the fair value is 1,000. Now, as at the next reporting date, okay, the land is revalued to 2,050. The applicable tax rate is 25. Tax base for all the period is 800. Now, what is the deferred tax liability on the date of acquisition, and how should further changes be recognized? This is the question. So first, so on the date of acquisition, the difference is 1,050 versus, right? Deferred tax 1,050 versus fair value is 1,000 versus 800, and then it increases 1,550 minus 800, and so that is also, if you see, 50 is recognized at the date of acquisition, and then an increase of 25 we will recognize. So this will be recognized in OCI. Kindly understand. So this is because it is relating to revaluation, and revaluation will result. The results of revaluation will get into OCI, not P&L. So accordingly, it is taken to OCI, right? So this is the change in temporary difference. So what is happening? So as and when there is a change, we are recognizing in the respective place, right? Now this scenario is slightly different. So now what is happening? Same company. There is a first, when at the time of acquisition, Nine Limited analyzed that there is no future adjustable profit. So it has not recognized deferred tax asset. No, what has happened? So after analyzing this, when after acquisition by Nine Limited, it has reassessed its future taxable profits, and it is realizing that it is able to generate sufficient profits and deferred tax are adjustable. Now what is happening? So at the time of acquisition, there is no such scenario. So had it been okay, first it is so at the time of acquisition we are not evaluating deferred tax, so there is no impact on goodwill. Now after acquisition, after 1 or 2 years, there is an impact and it gets into P&L. Okay, so the bullet number 2 is very important. Now, why? So had this information been available to the company in the measurement period itself, what would have happened? The deferred tax would be recognized in goodwill, right? So this information was not available earlier. Okay, since it is not available earlier, it could not go to goodwill, right? So information available at the acquisition date, it would have gone to goodwill. So since the information is available after the acquisition period and the measurement period, okay, so this gets into P&L of the organization, P&L of the group. Clear? So I'm touching upon a lot of basic aspects. Okay. So there is a question from Hemant to clear 900 versus 950. Can you be specific where in 900? So what will be the journal entry? So journal entry will be so debit assets, Mr. Amit, and then deferred tax liability will be credited, and the resultant goodwill will also be debited. Hmm. 950 is book value. 950 is book value. So book value, okay, I'll tell you why 950 and 900, I don't know. So 1 minute, I will see the chat box again. So 900 is, okay. So 900 is the tax value. Are you with me, Mr. Hemant? 900 is the tax base. So at the time of business combination, you will recognize or you will take the assets in books at fair value or not at book value. Okay. And this is a business combination scenario, and we are so this is a consolidated financial statement. It is consolidation financial. Then all the assets will get into at a fair value and not at a book value. So 950 is disregarded, and we are comparing 150 versus 150 will become the accounting base, and 900 will be the tax base. Clear? Yes, MAT credit. MAT credit will also be deferred tax asset. So there is a change in standard. MAT credit will also be deferred tax asset only. Okay. Now we'll move on. We'll move on to another scenario. Intra-group transaction. What is intra-group transaction? So intra-group transaction between associates, joint ventures, subsidiaries, branches. All these things will become intra-group transactions. So the important point here is elimination of unrealized profits. And these elimination of unrealized, we should also evaluate what are the adjustments required on account of temporary, so possible or new temporary differences. So we'll again understand with the help of an example. So what is happening? There is an parts which is sold to industrial company by production company. They are selling at 9,900 and the profit is 900. So the margin is 10%. Okay. Move on to bullet point 4. Neem Industrial carries 2,200 as inventories. Industry company is carrying 2,200 as inventories. But what is happening? Production company has made a sale of 9,900 and it has paid the profit. It has paid tax on profits at 30%. Now, is there any temporary difference? Okay. The temporary difference is there. Okay. So the cost for the group is only 2,000. Okay. So cost of inventory. So for example, what will happen? Nile Industrial Company will disclose 2,200 as inventory, right? But there is an unrealized profit of 20, which will be eliminated. So eliminate 200. So what the inventory will be carried at 2,000 rupees. Clear? So be with me. So if you have any doubts, please ask. Very simple. So 2,200 will appear in inventory of Neem Industrial. So when we add balance sheet, of industrial production, line by line addition. So what will happen? So 2,200 will appear. Now there will be an unrealized profit between industrial and production company. 200 is eliminated. 2,000 will be sitting. Now, interestingly, production company has paid a tax at 30%. Okay. So there is a difference between 2,200 and 2,000 on which the tax has been paid at 30%, right? Now, there's a deductible difference. The 200 rupees and the carrying amount is higher by 25%. There is a difference of 50, and which is a deductible temporary difference in the books of Neem. Okay, Neem production. Clear? Okay. So on unrealized profit, there is a difference between tax base and the tax. So that amount has to be recognized as deductible temporary difference in books. That's all. Okay. Now, so is clear. So we'll have to analyze where the impacts are. So in a consolidated versus separate financial statement scenario, so where the differences between tax base and accounting base should be analyzed with respect to a separate financial statement if you're preparing individual financial statements, and consolidated financial statements in case of the group perspective. Okay, temporary differences will be different and are different between consolidated and separate financial statements. Okay, fine. So deferred tax liabilities. So this is slightly important. If the parent company is able to control the timing of the reversal, okay, if the parent company is able to control the timing of the reversal, no recognition of DTL is required. If the parent company is not able to or will not do it, then there is a requirement for us to recognize deferred tax liabilities. Fine. So and there is a probability that the temporary difference will not reverse in the foreseeable future. Fine. So now what is happening? Okay, we'll understand this with the help of an example. So Lean Limited takes 40% stake in Neem Clean. So policy Neem Clean will always give distributed dividends. Dividends it will declare. There is no agreement. Dividends are taxed at 10%. Capital gains are taxed at 40%. Okay. There is a tax base and accounting base 1,500 and 1,000 is a tax base. Accounting base is 1,500. Okay. Now what is the result? The result is if the entity can control timing of reversal. Okay. So it is saying don't declare dividends. Then there is no deferred tax liability. Okay. If there is a, so this is what? So this is at 10%. 500 versus 1,500 versus 1,000. So 500 apply 10%. Timing difference will future through dividends. Okay, then what will happen? There you will recognize a liability of 50. Now, only through sale, you sell the entire stake. Now what will happen? There is a capital gain 500 and the capital gain rate is 40%. You apply and then you take a recognized DTL at 200. These are the scenarios. This is what is explained in the previous two slides. Okay, it's better to understand with the help of an example. That's the objective. Fine. So there are many scenarios in which DTL or DTA will arise. Okay, some of the popular scenarios under Indian conditions are additional depreciation under section 32, 35 and all. Okay, now what will happen? Those will result in significantly lower tax base, and accordingly what will happen? You will always carry a deferred tax liability, right? Okay, very important. Now there is a decommissioning asset and related obligations. So what is decommissioning asset and related obligations? Sometime in a mine scenario, what will happen? The government might require the companies to do a decommissioning activity and provide the site at a decent level, right? The company will have to assess what would be the cost of such rebuilding exercises and recognize this is governed by IAS 16, right? So what will happen? A corresponding amount is amount of decommissioning provision is made in the balance sheet. Now, so now whether DT is recognized? The answer is no, because those assets and liabilities are or shall be viewed on a net basis, and no DT arises at inception. Okay, but temporary differences at the time of inception there is no difference. But at the end of the scenario, there is a difference because assets are depreciated, say at a straight line method or a WDV method, and liability is discounted. Okay, and fair value liability is carried at the fair value. Now what will happen? There will be a difference. There will be timing. There is a slight difference between the depreciation rate and because of unwinding of discounts. Okay, this will create a temporary difference and the amounts are very insignificant and DT needs to be created on these scenarios. There are many other scenarios in which the accounting base and tax base will be different, and those have to be carefully considered, okay, and recognized in books. Okay. Now I would like to explain one scenario where ITFG has given guidance. Okay. So ITFG on land. Okay. Say there is a freehold land. Okay. And say there is a freehold land, and there is a factory constructed on the land. Say, for example, if it is say 10 acres, and the factory is constructed on using the entire area of the land. Now what will happen over a period of time? Say the asset is used for 50 years. Okay. Now the factory will become obsolete, and they would like to remove the factory and all, right? So now in this scenario, so what is happening, interestingly, what is happening is that there is a change in tax base of the land value. Okay, how there is a change in tax base of the land value? So in 2020, I purchased a land of 10 acres worth of 1 crore. Okay, there is no change in accounting base, but there's a change in tax base due to what I would say, indexation rates. Sorry, due to indexation rates are pronounced by the government, right? So due to indexation, what will happen? The tax base will keep increasing against 1 crore. The tax base at the end of the year 1 will be 1.1 crore, and the end of year 2 will be 1.25 crores. Depending on the cost of inflation, the government announces the indexation rate. So without any change in accounting base, there is a change in tax base. So now what will happen? There is a benefit which is available to the company, right? Should be recognized deferred tax asset. Okay. The answer given is it is highly judgmental. Okay. So the management intention has to be looked at on how the management or the company will evaluate to recover the carrying amount of the asset. Okay. The answer here is, if you keep recognizing, then what will happen? You will carry an asset. Okay, tax base will carry an asset all the time without any base. Okay, so it is adjustable that the management intention are looked at on an overall basis and how it wants to recover, and give the treatment accordingly in the books of account. This is one interesting scenario. Okay, under Indian circumstances. Fine. So let us move on to presentation and disclosure requirements. As I told you, tax expense is one of the very high impact areas in financial statements. So I've tried summarizing. Okay, but there are many other places in where these are taxation is disclosed everywhere, right? So Ind AS 1 says accounting policies to disclose significant accounting policies. Okay, taxation is always a significant matter for judgment, and it has to be disclosed. In balance sheet, we present current tax liabilities and assets separately, and similarly deferred tax assets and liabilities are disclosed separately. Okay, so please remember to offset principles. Okay, only to the extent of offset it can be offset, otherwise it will be disclosed as deferred tax asset or liability scenario separately. Now, and then the third bullet is tax expense. What is tax expense? Tax expense has to be disclosed. Major components are disclosed. Now, an interesting factor is you'll have to give a reconciliation between accounting profit and tax expense, right? So which means we will end up disclosing what are the major exemptions which we availed and all those things. Okay, bear in mind, right? So this explanation of relationship between so we'll say, so at 100 lakhs I applied 30% tax rate, I get 30 lakh tax payable. but under income tax, I'm getting only 20 lakhs. Why there is a reduction? So we'll keep explaining those things in the financial statements. Then what happens in a business combination scenario? We'll have to discuss. We have to disclose additional information. Okay. What is the amount of unrecognized temporary difference? Okay. In case of discontinued operations, we end up presenting tax for continuing business and tax on discontinued operations, and then deferred tax asset and liability. For each of the captions, we'll give movement, opening balance, what are current year additions, how it has been utilized, amounts utilized, and closing balance. Okay. When I mean each, so you'll have fixed assets under DTL generally, and DTA, an interesting, easy remembrance. We'll have employee benefits provision, and then say some of the future deductible liability warranty provision. This is a classic example of DTL. All those things, there is a movement disclosed in the financial statement. Okay. DTA of loss-making entities. So we discussed this in detail. So we have to disclose. So maybe if startup is using this, then they might have to disclose why they have recognized DTA and what is the base on which they'll be able to make future profits. The basis of and a description and a brief description of how they are recognized has to be disclosed. Okay. Cash flows, we all know, we disclose income taxes paid in the cash flow, which is mandated by Ind AS. That's all. Okay. So this is done. Okay. Okay, one interesting question, no problem. Sure. See, okay. Now, Mr. Naraj wants discussion on DTA or DTAL and so it is not discouraged, sir. So it is not discouraged. Okay. So what is happening? Okay, you understand if the company is running and it intends to use the asset for next 50 years, 100 years. Okay. So what is the point in recognizing deferred tax asset without knowing when the company will close the operations? Okay. So what are we saying? So there is a company. There's a popular company in Chennai, for example, say Ford. Okay, the operations have come down. We all know, but are we saying the land is up for sale? Okay, and the benefits of using the indexation will come into play only when the company decides to sell the land, right? When dispose the land and leave India as a business place, right? So in such scenario. Okay, understand the management intention comes into play. Okay, what is the management intention? Management intends to run the factory. Okay, management intends to recover the carrying amount by use of the asset. Okay, once the management continues, management intends to use it. Okay, now what is the problem? So we had an example there. So it says when you use it, okay, generate the profit and use the rates applicable on the business profits, right? When the intention is changing, say I am here to sell, okay, then you will use the capital gains rate. That's all. Okay, only when the intention changes, okay, it would be appropriate. It is my view, and that is what is suggested there also. That is my understanding. Okay, that the deferred tax on difference between indexed cost of acquisition and the cost of acquisition, okay, has to be understood with the help of the management's intention, right? That is the main thing, sir. Okay, it is not discouraging. It is only asking us to analyze the management intention, right? So Mr. Ramamurdam is having another question. So when a non-current asset is held for sale, the intention of management is clear. How should that be dealt with? So there the intention is absolutely clear, sir. Non-current asset will be recognized only when there is a board approval. Okay, and the board approval, and there are so many other things, the conditions attached to it. Okay, there has to be a binding sale plan. Plan should be there to sell the assets and all those things. So then the intention is very clear. You will apply only capital gains rate. Okay. Okay. Yeah, how do we document management intention? Very good. Sir, it is interesting. So you get a representation and you get projections and you get a valuation done. So there are so many other ways. Okay. Management intention, yes, the best way is to get representation. And we will also, so we will also understand with the help of the existing operations, if the factory operations are discontinued and it is held and it is being renovated, okay, the intentions are visible in the form of attached things. That's all. Okay, fine. So we'll have quick time for borrowing cost. Then we will have questions if any. Done. So borrowing cost is actually a simple standard. Okay, but the application of this will again be wide whenever it is applicable. Okay, and we will discuss with the help of few examples very quickly. I'll take 10 to 15 minutes maximum. That's all. Fine. The core principle is, so what is a borrowing cost? Okay. So what is a borrowing cost? The borrowing cost is something which we incur, which is directly attributable to acquisition, construction, or production of a qualifying asset. Okay. Now, qualifying asset, if it is relating to qualifying asset, we will capitalize. If it is not relating to qualifying asset, then it is recognized as an expense. Now, borrowing cost. Interest and other costs incurred in relation to borrowing of funds. Very simple. Okay. Now, what other things which will, so how it will include interest expenses using effective interest rate method under 119 and finance charges, finance lease. Okay. So the standard is not there. Now it is in Ind AS 116, which will result in the same scenario. And then exchange differences arising from foreign currency borrowings. Para 6E, we will discuss in detail. Now, qualifying asset. So, qualifying asset is an asset which takes substantial period of time for the intended use. Clear? So, the main concept is borrowing cost and the qualifying asset. These are the two things which we'll have to keep in mind. Now, okay. So, these are the examples of qualifying asset. So inventory can be a qualifying asset. Manufacturing plants are generally qualifying asset because it takes substantial period of time. And power generation facilities, intangible assets, okay, intangible assets, investment properties. These are the examples of qualifying asset. Now, we'll take one example. Okay, so there's a telecom entity which acquired 4G license. Now, the 4G license can be either sold or again sub-licensed to a third party, right? Now, the management is intending to operate a wireless network and it needs time for development. The license has been exclusively acquired to operate a wireless network and it takes time. Now, what happens? Whether it is a qualifying asset, whether the management to sell a license will change the eligibility criteria for it to be a qualifying asset or capitalization of borrowing cost. Okay. The point is, the acquisition of license is very important, okay, for developing a network, which has happened. Now, the second thing is the network and the amount invested in the network activity is a qualifying asset under Ind AS 23. Now, interest. See here, the most important point is management intention, whether to sell or license or to someone else, is not relevant because any which ways it will it will have a future economic benefit either by sale or by license it to a third party, right? So the interest once it is treated as a qualifying asset, okay, and the interest will be eligible for capitalization. okay, during the development period, right? So management intention of either it for its own use or for selling it does not arise. So the borrowing cost is capitalizable and it is capitalized. So what if an asset is constructed by a third party? Okay, so here the example is simple. So there is a company name limited which has ordered 4 aircrafts. Fine. So in March 2021 it placed an order, but and by placing the order they have paid down payment also. The payment schedule is as per the expected delivery date, and the entire purchase is made by a way of borrowing from the bank. Now what is happening? The Lean Limited received information in June 21 that the production activity has not started by the supplier due to various other reasons, and because it needs time to first acquire materials and then COVID situation. Take for example. Now what will happen is aircraft a qualifying asset, and then whether the qualifying asset can be constructed by a third party, and now the borrowing cost can be, from which date the borrowing cost has to be capitalized. Okay, so we'll discuss one by one. The aircraft is a qualifying asset. There is no doubt in that, because the primary condition of substantial period of time is satisfied. It takes substantial time for them to construct the asset, right? Now, so borrowing cost should be capitalized. There is no doubt. But what has happened? So from when will you capitalize borrowing cost? That is a significant question. Will you capitalize borrowing cost because you made the down payment? Down payment is made in March 21, but the production has not started till June, right? So the point is there has to be an activity, and the continuing activity should take place, and then only the borrowing cost can be capitalized. Just because you made an advance, that does not mean you would start capitalizing borrowing cost. Okay, that is the understanding. Capitalization of borrowing cost starts only when the manufacturer starts the construction activity. He has started, or the manufacturing company started activity only in the month of June 2021. Okay, and in particular, it has started manufacturing in relation to only 1 aircraft. The balance 3 aircraft, they have not even started construction activity. So the advance payment relating to 3 aircrafts will be postponed until there is a production operation. Okay, until there is a commencement of production operation. That's all. Right? Good. Clear with me? So it's a simple standard, purely logic driven. Okay. Now, so borrowing cost will be capitalized. So this is okay. I'll tell you why this is very simple. So such borrowing costs are capitalized only when it is probable that they will result in future economic benefits. So it is not only for borrowing cost, for all assets. Okay, you will recognize them as assets only when there is a condition, there is a future economic benefits, there is a future economic occurring to the company, right? So those borrowing costs that would be avoided. Okay, for example, I could have purchased an asset without getting a borrowing. Okay, then there is no scenario of interest, right? So we should establish that an additional borrowing has taken place for building a qualifying asset. Okay, if that is established, borrowing cost can be capitalized. Okay, simple. Now, how to measure borrowing cost? Specific borrowing cost, which means an exclusive, like in the aircraft, we said the aircrafts are bought by way of a bank loan. So the entire, what is the rate charged by that bank will be straight away will become the specific borrowing cost rate. Now, so if the funds are temporarily invested in a fixed deposit, then you would reduce that income, say fixed deposit income from the actual borrowing cost. So we will reduce the capitalization. Now when there is a general borrowing. So general borrowing gives a scenario to analyze WACC. WACC meaning, so we'll take all the existing borrowings as at the date of loan or over a period of time we will take. and we'll analyze what is the weighted average cost of capital of all the general borrowing outstanding during the period, and then we'll arrive at a rate. Okay, this is very, very mathematical, simple. So this is what the standard says. Okay, let us not get into how to compute WACC and all. Okay, so take all the borrowing cost, interest paid for all the loans, and take all the borrowings outstanding during the period and compute the weighted average. Simple. Now, so when to capitalize, we have discussed. So commencement, the entity shall incur expenditure for the asset and incur borrowing cost, undertake activities that are necessary to prepare the asset. So in our aircraft example, entity has incurred expenditure in the form of making an advance. Okay, and it has also incurred borrowing cost. Good, but it has not, meaning it or the third party which is manufacturing aircraft on behalf of the company has not undertaken activities that are necessary to prepare the asset. Okay, so in that example, the borrowing cost is postponed till June for one aircraft, and for the other 3 aircrafts, it is postponed until there is a plan for manufacturing, right? So these 3 conditions has to be satisfied in evaluating whether this is eligible for capitalization. Okay, so in many scenarios, clients will come and argue that, sir, we have paid advance borrowing cost. I am incurring this borrowing cost only for the purpose of, say, constructing a building, constructing a shopping mall, constructing a commercial place of business. But we have to evaluate whether the commercial activities have started, at least whether the entity has made application for getting some approval. Okay, so those are the points which we have to evaluate. So point number 1, which is available in books. Point number 2 also available in books. Point number 3, interesting factor, it is not available in books. How do you know that the constructing activity is happening when there is a lockdown? How will you go and visit the place? Okay, so point number 3 is outside the book. So we need to be very, very careful. Suspension, no active development. When they say there are some events which stops the activities of development, then please suspend until you know. Okay, cessation. What is cessation? Stop, completely stop. Completely stop meaning the asset is ready. Okay, I am using it. Okay, ready for what the purpose for which the asset is used. Please stop capitalization. Right? So you cannot capitalize forever. These are the 3 rules. Okay, kindly keep in mind. No problem. So what is the period of capitalization? Okay, fine. Commencement. This is an example for commencement. So there is a land which is acquired, which is used previously for agriculture purposes. Now the management is intending to construct a factory on it. So it has made application to a local authority. Right? NEEM has purchased the land with the help of a bank loan, which is repayable over 57 years. Now, can the company capitalize borrowing cost here? So what is the date of commencement of capitalization? This is interesting. Okay, now see the application. Yes, application states that our intention to construct a factory, and the intention of the factory. The application is an activity, which application is generally a main activity for preparing the asset for its intended use, right? So the point for evaluation here is whether the authority will give permission to construct a factory. Okay, if it is only a formality and it does not need a significant formality, and it becomes a basis for us to capitalize borrowing cost. If the authority is expected to reject the application, okay, then what will happen? So you cannot construct a factory in the place, and accordingly, the principles are not met. So we will not recognize borrowing. We'll stop, or we will decapitalize borrowing cost. Clear? So the intention of the company and the general approval mechanism is very important. If the general approval mechanism, okay, anyway, the government will give approvals. If that is a scenario, so you have no information that If the management does not have any information that the application will be rejected, then what will happen? Then there is a good chance that expectation that the asset will be allowed to be constructed and it can be capitalized. If it is not, then we were constructing a land, this land is in a lake or something, then what will happen? They will not get approval. Okay. So if the situations or the scenarios existing gives rise to believe that the approval will not be given, then the asset is not eligible. The borrowing cost is not eligible for capitalization. Okay. Fine. Okay. So we will discuss this. So there is a retail store. It is planning to construct three things. One is a car park, and the other one is a core building, and the final phase is interiors. Okay, fixtures and fittings. Now, car park is available. Car park is constructed, completed, and the nearby theater is allowed to park. Okay. So now what is happening? Whether parking lots capitalization should stop? Yes, the answer is yes, because the parking lot is being used for the purposes. Car is allowed to be parked. So it means that they can capitalize. Very clear? Okay. Now, can they stop capitalizing 2 and 3? The answer is no. They can continue to capitalize the borrowing cost incurred for the purposes of construction of core building and internal fixtures and fittings. We can continue to capitalize. Right? Phase 1 is being used for intended use. Capitalization of each of the part will cease until it is ready for use. Okay. It is not ready, capable of being used. The more important word here. It is capable of being. It is not capable. Okay. Ready means it is capable of being used. Even if it is not put to use, also you should stop. Okay. So, for example, there was a client who said the factory is ready by April 1st. They did not enter the building because there are some reasons. They entered the building only on June 1st. So what is the date of cessation of capitalization? It should be April 1st or March 31st and not till May 31st. That is the difference. Clear? Okay. Now in the same example, let me give a different scenario. Okay, let me give a different scenario. So there are 3 phases. But the first phase is construction of core building. Second phase is internal fixtures. Third phase is construction. Okay. Now, construction of core building is ready, but car park is not ready. So what will happen? This gives a scenario where all the 3 phases are interlinked, right? Meaning, so it is interlinked, meaning this car park cannot be used without this core building and the interiors. And it is exclusively used for the purpose of this particular building. And accordingly, the interest will be capitalized until all the phases are complete. Clear? Now, cessation and suspension. Other some scenarios. Okay. So if there is an interruption, of construction activity, say COVID, what will happen? So if there is construction activity stopped, what will happen? Okay. So some people might say COVID is an exception scenario, so we will start capitalizing and we won't stop capitalizing. So I leave that judgment. Okay. If there is any other scenario, say there is an unrest, okay, so there is a flood scenario, we could not do any activity. So then we will stop capitalizing, suspend. It is not stop, it is suspending capitalization activity. Clear? So there are scenarios like interruption due to winter, flooding, okay. Nowadays, COVID, all those are considered to be normal interruptions. So interest can continue to be capitalized if you consider only as a normal interruption. Okay, abnormal you will not do. So long-term strike by construction workers. Okay, so don't capitalize, suspend capitalization, right? Political unrest, suspend capitalization. So these are some of the extended examples. Now, so what are the disclosure requirements? Fairly simple. So what is the amount of borrowing cost you capitalized? Disclose it in the appropriate places. And how have you determined capitalization rate eligible for? These are the two things which we will disclose along with, and again, a simple thing is accounting policy. That's all. Okay. Fine. So 1 minute, I will take some of the questions. Company has this policy of 100%. Company may have a policy of expensing or depreciating 100% asset less than a particular. Should the asset be considered as qualifying? No, absolutely no. So that's a depreciation policy, and what we are discussing is a qualifying asset. So qualifying asset, anything that takes substantial period of time for you to build, okay, develop, okay, medicines, application, mobile applications, software, say SAP implementation. So those are some of the examples. Okay, asset which are 100% depreciated or not large assets. So those are not considered as qualifying asset in general, right? Okay. What happens if there is no construction or manufacture of qualification in between? For example, maybe due to COVID or husband research costs. Yes, sir, we discussed. So COVID is normal or abnormal? We don't know. Okay, it looks normal this year. It looked abnormal last year. Okay, so ideal scenarios, clients or companies would prefer them to be capitalized, and we should exercise judgments in making such decisions, sir. Okay, now next is capitalize up to put to use or ready to use. 100% ready to use. Put to use is no relevance. Okay, I'm looking for an auspicious day to open my office. Okay, does it have any relevance to say that my asset is ready for use? Standard clearly says available for use. Okay, not put to use. Put to use only for income tax purposes. That is because of the government's intention to tax us more. Okay, it is always ready to use. Okay, suppose an asset which is a future generating asset, not sure whether it will be able to generate future economic. No, if there is no expectation that it will generate future economic benefits, then it is not an asset. First, it is not an asset. Then we'll come to whether it is a qualifying asset or not. Okay, flying car. Yes, why flying car? Okay, there are many more examples. There are many assets which are in research and development phase. You are absolutely right. In flying car which moves automatically. Okay, so there are research phase and development phase. Until there is a strong expectation that what about anything? So even the cost is not recognized. Okay, cost includes borrowing cost. That's all. And in the research phase, you invest a lot of money, and those all are expensed off until there is a visibility that yes, the asset will come out. Yes, a flying car will be developed by the company. Okay, so that means the research phase is over. So the research phase, no capitalization of any cost, including borrowing cost, and development phase there is only capitalization. Okay, fine. Whether board resolution done prepare? No, board resolution will also become an additional evidence. More than board, there are many activities where board resolutions are not there. The budgets, capital budgets of an organization. Okay, those can also be part of intended use, right? As a board resolution can also be an evidence, sir, but that is not mandatorily required. Okay, suppose there is a borrowing for constructing multiple assets A, B, and C, and if advance is paid for all, but construction is only, this we have covered. Okay. Okay, pertaining to only, okay, fine, but only A is started. In such a situation, Should the borrowing proportionately pertaining? Yes, you are right. Absolutely right. It has to be apportioned and proportionately be allocated only to the phase A and not to others. And how to allocate is depending on, say, square feet. Okay, can also be done. No, so square feet is a base. If there is any other, if there is a hotel, number of rooms, something like that. Okay, so strong, but that has to be a base. That's all. There is no hard rule as to you have to have a base to just follow. Is actual payment of borrowing cost a requisite? Yes, absolutely yes, madam. Without actual payment, how will you incur borrowing cost? So assume a scenario, you have made a provision. There is no interest cost in your P&L. There should be an interest cost in P&L, then only you will have capitalization. Here, okay, without actual payment, there can never be a borrowing cost. First done. Now, where will the borrowing cost do? Where will be the borrowing? It will be an expense, interest expense, finance cost. That's all. Yeah. So I think I've clarified. Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time. And
Share the screen, sir. I hope you addressed all the questions.
I'll stop the screen, sir.
1 minute, sir. Just add in. 1 minute over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. We have robbed your Sunday morning, but then inevitable for us because we have fixed up this timing to be more useful because it will be fresh in the morning. And those who are in the very responsible positions may find it difficult to grasp all these things in the evening times. So thank you very much on behalf of SIRC for this session. On behalf of the SIRC, I also thank all the participants. The feedback is so good, and I'm seeing it was very good. So people like you are the real torch bearers of the institute. So thank you all members for your participation. I think it is very useful session, and you have made use of it. Especially today, there are so many confusions in income tax disclosures. So that should have you should have clarified all their doubts also. Thank you very much. We will meet again the next weekend, Saturday. Thank you, sir. Good day.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Silva.